My name is Ryan, and I'm an addict from Cincinnati, Ohio. Um, so I grew up in Anderson Township. I came from a normal enough family. My parents are still married today. One brother, one sister. Never wanted for anything in my life. I was first arrested at 6 years old. Uh, my babysitter had put sewing needles into apples that I was going to take to school for the rest of my class, and even though I was innocent in that case, I ended up being carried out of the school in handcuffs, and that kind of set the tone for my life with my feelings about law enforcement at the time. And as a child, I always was rooting for the bad guy in movies. I wanted the villains to win. I wanted the bad guys to get away. And Cops and Robbers, I wanted to be the robbers. I wanted the gangsters not to die at the end of the movie. Um, just thoughts that I don't think that a lot of other kids had. They wanted to be Superman, and they wanted the cops to always get their man, and that's just not how it was for me. Um, so as I entered high school, I start doing all the first, like what I thought a typical teenage high school student was. We would steal whatever liquor we could get from one of our friends' parents' liquor cabinets and just drink and have a good time, let loose like I said, what we thought was normal enough at the time. And even from those initial days of the peppermint schnapps and the Kahlua and, nasty drinks that are not meant to be just consumed alone, I would be blackout drinking. And I didn't see that was a problem at the time, but that's the reality. And right around the same time, I start smoking weed, and that was it for me right there at the time. I loved it. I smoked weed all day, every day, as much as I possibly could. I wouldn't sleep without it. I wouldn't eat without it. And I just totally devoted all my resources to just smoking pot. And I continued that for several years. Towards the end of high school, I can very distinctly remember when the Eminem CD came out and it had the Broken Vicodin on the actual CD, that I felt the need to start taking pain pills. And again, it was recreationally enough at the time, and I thought that obviously, like, this is mainstream music, so that it was acceptable and okay. And all throughout high school, we did every combination of anything we could get our hands on. And, the robo-tripping with the Robitussin, acid, shrooms, eating the Coricidin pills to get a buzz. Just everything to escape that awkward high school phase. I was trying to figure out where I fit in and how to just get by. And for me, I always turned to drugs, and that wasn't obviously the best thing for my life at the time. So at 15 and a half, my parents had me arrested. I was being unruly. I wouldn't follow their directions. I'm living in their house, but I'm doing what I want. I won't do anything that they ask me to do. I always got good grades in school. School was never a problem for me. I didn't even have to pay attention, and I did good. So it wasn't that my education was suffering. It was just I was not being a good human. I wasn't respecting my family or my parents. So I get arrested at 15 and a half, and I get put on juvenile probation, but I didn't get off juvenile probation until my 18th birthday, and I end up right back on adult probation within 18 months of that, because the story of my life is I want to do what I want to do, and even people who know better and are trying to have my best interest, I won't follow anybody's direction but my own. So when I went to jail at 15 and a half, it took the whole stigma away. Like, I'm basically just hanging out with the guys. We're playing, board games and cards all day long. We don't have the freedom. We can't leave. But it really wasn't too big of a deal. Like, nothing bad was happening in the showers to anybody. Like, it was just totally just like extended summer camp or something. I don't know. So when I get out and I'm back at my house and in my day-to-day life, there is no longer that fear or the consequences of you're going to go to jail or we're going to call your probation officer, because it just really wasn't a big deal to me. So I continue just doing what I want, and I end up having sex with a girl at my high school while I was in a relationship with another girl at my high school. Well, obviously that didn't work out very well when the two found out about each other, and I had sarcastically said, "I will kill you," to one of the girls, and that got me expelled from my high school 8 days into my senior year. So I wasn't going to graduate from my high school, and I'm just like existing. So I get a job, and now I have an income, and all I'm doing is devoting that money to get and use drugs, because I don't want to face the fact of the reality that I'm not going to graduate, that I've just sent my life down the totally wrong path. And I don't know. So I'm working this job, and I'm continuing, all sorts of drug use. I'm taking Adderall in the morning to have the energy to get up, to go to work. I'm taking pain pills at this point to come down in the evenings when I get off work. I'm taking Xanax during the day because I'm stressed out about how I'm going to pay for these uppers and these downers that I need, and just dealing with society, and also trying to smoke weed in there. And then on top of all that, on Friday and Saturdays, I feel like I'm deserving of going to the bar with my friends on Friday and Saturday nights, because I've had such a hard week of self-imposed misery trying to juggle 3 different addictions. So I couldn't keep that job for long. I was taking money out of my cash register and taking extended breaks and coming in late, and, just all around terrible employee. So I get the opportunity to move to Atlanta with a former girlfriend of mine, and I'm thinking that Cincinnati is the problem. I'll just have this fresh start. I'll move with her to Atlanta. She was supposed to be in the entertainment industry, so I'm thinking she's going to make it big. This is my meal ticket. This is going to be my sugar mom. I'm going to be good. So we attempt, I just abandon my apartment with everything in it, and we take off, and obviously nothing is ever as good as it seems. And so now we are in Georgia, and I don't know anybody, and she's looking out for her best interest, and that may or may not have been me. So I became replaceable, and so I'm reaching back to Cincinnati, reaching out. I decide I want to come back, and I end up coming back to Cincinnati, and then I'm right back into another, dead-end job, just supporting the habit. The way the pain pill epidemic had hit Ohio, and I'm pretty sure most of the country, they started cracking down on the amount of pills that were being prescribed, and therefore there was less pills available on the street, and at the same time so many people are fighting over the same amount of pills that eventually it just became there were no pills, or the pills were way too expensive. So all this time leading up to my life, I would do any drug, but I'm not going to do heroin. As long as I'm not a heroin addict, it's fine. And the first day that I was dope sick and there was no pills, I did heroin. And immediately after snorting that first line, I was like, well, what's all the hype about? I'm not homeless. Like, everything's fine. Like, that's the same. That's the same. And it's so much cheaper. Like, I've been screwing myself this whole time. And so it was never pain pills again after that. It was heroin all day, as much as I could afford in all capacities. This cycle goes on for years, over and over. And eventually I had a friend die, and his fiance was here in Cincinnati, and she did not want to return home to their house in Pittsburgh to pack up alone. So she offered me that I could come with her, live in Pittsburgh, and again, it's back to the Cincinnati is my problem. If I can just get out of Cincinnati, I will be fine. And I won't do drugs, and my life will be great, and I won't have any consequences. And again, that's not the case. I go to Pittsburgh, and within 8 hours of getting in Pittsburgh, I've used a needle for the first time. The next door neighbor was an IV heroin user, and I needed him to get me the heroin because I didn't know anybody, and well, we should shoot it, and there you go. And that was the worst thing I could have ever done for my life. Because again, the drug addict part of me is like, you've been doing it wrong for all these years. You've been wasting all this money. You could have been on the needle, and it would have been so much better. So, I could never get a job in Pittsburgh. I didn't know where I was going. This is before Google Maps, so I'm aimlessly, like driving around Pittsburgh, acting like I'm looking for a job, not really looking for a job because I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's right around the next corner. So the girl that had let me move in with her was tired of supporting me. She was also an addict, so she was exploiting her family for money, and two habits is more expensive than one, and she's going to look out for herself. So eventually it was, you need to go back to Cincinnati. So I go back to Cincinnati, and at this point I want help. I walk in from my drive home from Pittsburgh, and I immediately start crying. I fall to my knees in front of my mom. I'm telling her I'm a heroin addict. I want help. I don't know what to do. And she didn't believe me. She told me that if I was an addict, to go get heroin and not do it until I got back to the house. So I did, and she told me if I was really an addict that I should sit at the dining room table and inject it in front of my family. And I absolutely did that because I am an addict, and nothing matters to me when I am getting high, and your feelings don't compare to Ryan's feelings. So obviously that took a huge toll on my family's relationship, and how I was viewed by my family, and just put a strain on things. So they did allow me still to stay there, and we tried, they got me on Suboxone maintenance, trying to get me off the heroin, and that worked for about a month until I realized that I was sitting there with over $1,000 worth of medication if I just sold those, and then I could do the drugs that I wanted to do. So I proceed to sell my Suboxone so that I can continue to get high on heroin, and they eventually have had enough. And I go and I buy heroin one day, and I try to come back to the house, and my dad follows me downstairs, and he tackles me to the floor, and he takes the heroin out of my hand and calls the police. And so now I had felony drug charges. And in Cincinnati, we have drug court. And so I was in Judge Burke's drug court. And, I acted right enough just to get off of drug court and off probation. I completed treatment, model client, no dirty drops, employed, paid probation, everything. But the whole time, my hidden motives are just to get through this so that I can go back to getting high the way I want to. And then this time I'm just not going to get caught. This time I'm just going to not let myself get addicted. This time it's going to be different. I'm just going to, use it on weekends or when I'm having a bad day, all these things that I would tell myself that aren't realistic because heroin is not a part-time drug. So the day we graduated from drug court, we all got high together. And out of the 28 people that I went to drug court with, there's only 8 alive today. So that's the reality of heroin. And but at the time, we wanted to all get high together. We've been through this year-long process together, and you had formed good bonds with these people, so we wanted to get high because that's how I would interact with my friends. So during that time that I had been on drug court, I had gotten a good job with an addict that I had met in drug court, and immediately I had access to people's cars, and I'm stealing change, gift cards, whatever, out of these cars that are at my job. Again, showing up late for the job, extended lunch breaks, nodding out at my computer, all these things that from all they had known me was clean. And all of a sudden I graduate and my entire demeanor and job performance and everything changed. So I lost that job almost immediately, about 2 months after graduating. So I was so embarrassed to tell my family what had happened because I had gained a little bit of trust back in that year that I had been in drug court. So every day I'm still leaving the house and I'm sitting in my car at the mall parking lot for 8 hours acting like I'm really at the job. But, then I start hitting up my mom for gas money, cigarette money, whatever, with, these wild stories about why my paychecks aren't there and where my money really is. And I would just say because she wanted to think the best about me, her son, but she probably really knew. So once the jig is up that I have lost this job, they kick me out. And at this point, I have about one good friend who is willing to let me come and stay at his house with him and his wife and his kids. Well, they had 2 rules for me when I got there, and that was don't smoke cigarettes in the basement and don't buy drugs in our driveway. So, of course, I'm smoking cigarettes in their basement and I'm buying drugs in their driveway. So the first time they caught me buying drugs in their driveway, that was it. They have their kids living there. They're not addicts. They're not getting high, so they're definitely not okay with me getting high in their house with their children, putting their family at risk. So they kick me out. And so at this point, I have nowhere to go. Like, my family is done with me. My friends are done with me. I've robbed every friend, even addicts that are in my life. If they trusted me to get them drugs or trusted me with their money or left money around me in any way, shape, or form, I had robbed them. Jewelry, DVDs, gaming systems, whatever, you name it. I've stolen from every person in my life that will let me close enough to them, and I've burnt every bridge professionally and socially in my life. So I'm really sitting there thinking, like, well, where can I go where I don't have to have any money and no one is going to harass me and let me be there? So I come up with the idea of I'm going to go downtown to the library, and at least I'll have internet so that I can work some kind of scam, and it'll be warm, and I'll just hang out there till I figure something out. So I go downtown Cincinnati to the public library, and I run into one of my longest acquaintances that I had used to get high with several years ago. And I'm like, so what are you doing? Like, how are you surviving? And he's like, oh yeah, it's no problem. I'll show you what to do. You can sleep with me. I got a camp. And I don't really understand what that means at this point, but I'm like, all right. And he's like, I'll show you how to get some money. So he takes me down to where he usually had stood and held his sign, homeless, hungry, please help. And what happened for me was the worst possible scenario, because the very first time I ever held a sign, within 4 minutes, somebody had came up and gave me $20. And I didn't know that at the time, but that never happens. Like, you will get $1, $1, $1, $1, and it takes hours to get a couple dollars sometimes. But the very first time, somebody came in under 5 minutes and gave me $20, and I just thought, well, this is it. Like, this is great. This is perfect. Like, free money. I stood here. It was kind of embarrassing, sure, for 4 minutes, but I got the drugs now, and as soon as I do the drugs, I no longer care about the embarrassment that I had just held a sign begging for money. I lost a lot of the stigmas that day about flying a sign asking for money, and so that was it. From that day that I first went to the public library, just thinking it was going to be just for that day, that I was just going to go to the library and kind of waste some time, I never left downtown Cincinnati for 3 years. He took me that night to his bridge, and, he had a mattress under the bridge up in the rafters, and it was early spring at this point, so it was kind of cool, but it wasn't terribly cold, and that was it. I'm hanging out with my buddy. We're doing drugs. And that's just what it became for a long time. And the police will come and move you from one camp to another. They'll serve you an eviction notice under your bridge, the same as they would at your apartment. They will not try to get you housing. They will not try to arrest you. They'll just say, we don't care where you go, but you can't be at this bridge anymore. We'd pack up our camp. We'd go to another bridge, and that's what it is. I spent all day, every day, from the minute I woke up till the minute that I finally passed out for the day, scamming, scheming, lying, manipulating, and hustling whatever it took to, again, with I got to do heroin at first in the morning because I'm dope sick and I got to feel better. Then I got to do crack in the afternoon because I'm going to be up all night hustling again to get the money for more heroin at nighttime, and any and other random drugs that come along during the day. And food was the very last thought on my brain. We would get $100 and maybe spend $1 a day on a 50-cent Little Debbie and a 50-cent pop. And sometimes I would be mad at myself for even allowing myself that $1, because I knew that I would need that $1 for drugs the next day. And that's the reality of the grip that drugs had on my life. Food was an afterthought. Showering definitely was not in the question. There was times where 8 months, I think, was the longest I went without showering, and absolutely no shame at all. I would have still tried to lie to you and tell you that I was just down on my luck, that I just, this, that, or the third. So a lot of my friends are dying, when I'm out here. And again, that's not fazing me. It's just, oh, well, such and such is dead. And it'd be like, oh, well, I wonder where he got those drugs from because I want to go do those. And eventually, it all started to take a toll because the money slows down. A lot more people became homeless, and the drugs weren't working like they used to. I'm not even getting high anymore. I'm just getting well. I'm just maintaining. And I'm really just hating the cycle of life. Wake up, get high, be miserable, pass out, wake up, be high, be miserable, and the constant stress and the worry of, am I going to have enough money? When I get the money, is such and such going to answer? Am I going to be there in time? Am I going to get robbed? Whatever, all these different stressful situations that are going on, that it's taking me to continue to do this drug that's not even getting me high like it used to. It's just preventing me from being sick. So at the start of my third winter, I just really didn't have it in me for another winter. I mean, in Cincinnati here, the winters sometimes with the wind chill, it's below zero. And we were underneath 71 North overpass off Gilbert, and all steel, all I-beams and concrete, and it's no blockage from the wind. And they had thrown away our tent, they had thrown away all of our stuff, and so it's me and my buddy, and we, just had blankets up in the rafters, and it's definitely in the teens, definitely below zero with the wind chill a lot of times at night. And I just didn't have it in me for another winter. So I had made a decision in my mind that I was going to seek help. I was going to seek treatment. And that wasn't really realistic at that time because I am under a bridge with no health insurance, with no ID, with no cell phone, with no money, with nobody with my back. Like, I can sit there and say, like, yeah, I want to go to treatment. I want everything to be fine, but I didn't have a logistical way of how I was going to get the treatment. So there's one payphone left in the city, and that's at the Greyhound station. And I would go to the Greyhound station and I would call the rehab in our city every day. But again, that's not really realistic either because I don't have a callback number. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm calling and I'm not getting anywhere and I'm getting frustrated. And then as soon as I get enough money to get high, I lose the ambition to get clean because now everything's okay because now I got this money and I'll figure it out. And, so I called every day from that payphone at least 3 weeks every day, and I wasn't getting anywhere. So there are people downtown, the downtown ambassadors, and they're there to help the homeless, to help the city, and just to help make things safer, cleaner, and better in the city. And I had formed a relationship with one of these guys because he's out there every day at work. I'm out there every day because I'm out here hustling, getting money to get high. And eventually, he trusts me enough to let me use his cell phone. And so at least I'm calling the treatment center and I have a callback number now. Even then, though, that wasn't really realistic of me to expect that these people are going to go out of their way to track me down. But that's how my mind works, that Ryan is the most important person, that the world is going to stop and revolve around Ryan because Ryan finally is ready to go to treatment, that everyone is going to open these doors and pave the pathway to recovery for me, and that wasn't the case. But again, I'm calling every day, but I'm also getting high, and this continues and this continues. So eventually he's like, well, I'm going to give you a ride down there. And that way we can talk to them face to face, and you don't have to just be leaving a voicemail, and we don't have to hope that they're going to call me back. So I go, and they're like, yes, absolutely, come back tomorrow. And, the lady had given me her lunch. Like, I got there, her lunch was in her bag on her desk, and she gave me that lunch. She gave me her food. And so that was the first seed that was planted in my brain, like, wow, that lady just gave up her food for me. Now, yes, she had a job. Yes, she was clean. Yes, she can go buy more food. Yes. There's vending machines, all that. But the fact that she was willing to sacrifice that food for me, it really meant a lot and gave me a little bit of faith. So the next day, I go to treatment like I had arranged the day before. And I didn't really know what to expect. It was cold. I wanted somewhere warm. I wanted to be off the street. At least I knew I could buy myself a couple weeks, maybe a month, and get fed, get warm, get closer to spring. Then if I still wanted to get high, like, it would at least be warm. And, right before walking into the treatment center, I did, a humongous shot that was half crack and half heroin, just because mentally I knew I wanted to stop getting high, but I wasn't, like, physically I didn't know if I was, and I wasn't sure of how I would feel 8 hours from now about this being clean situation, so I was going to do the rest of my drugs just in case. So this is me when I walked into treatment that day. Completely broken human being. I smelled so bad that they had to open the window and intake. The lady was, like, spraying me with Lysol, but, like, not trying to make it embarrassing for me, but that's the reality. Like, it was terrible. I was down to about 140 pounds. I hadn't shaven in months. I hadn't showered in months. I'd been wearing the same clothes for months. And I got a ton of clothes on, like 22 pounds of clothes, I think, something like that, because it's cold. And so that's all, that stench is embedded in those clothes and in my skin. And again, in my head, I had this thought that it was going to be, I go to treatment and the world loves me and all is forgiven and everything's great and there's no penalty for all these charges that I've accumulated, and that's not the case. I go there and a lot of my peers didn't want anything to do with me, like I looked unapproachable, and I don't know, like, I just kept promising myself, like, I'll make it through today and see if I still want to leave tomorrow. I'll make it through today and see if I still want to leave tomorrow, because I knew the misery and the dope would still be there. Like, that's not going away. So I always knew in the back of my mind, if I chose to go back to that would be there. But what I didn't know was that I would have another opportunity at recovery, another bed open at the rehab, another chance for a lady to give me her lunch and make me see faith in the human race and in myself. So about day 4, my roommate, who, bless his heart, was having to try to sleep with me in the same room and can't because of how nasty the room stinks and whatever's going on in his mind. He goes around to the treatment center and got all the people to donate one item of clothing to me out of their stuff. And, like, all these people don't really have much either. Like, nobody gets to rehab, with a closet full of name brand clothes, or, with all their affairs in order. They wouldn't be in rehab. So that gesture was so huge for me again. Somebody had believed in me. Somebody wanted to help me with nothing in exchange. He just wanted me to have something to change into, because I had no other clothes. Like, even after I was washing these clothes, like, it wasn't really helping. So he wanted to give me that, the ability to change clothes, to feel like I fit in with the rest of the people there by having just, even if it was material things at that time, but at least I could come and sit at the lunchroom table without the thought of, do I smell? Are they looking at me? Whatever. And, I wasn't used to that. Like, I wasn't used to people not being that selfless. And that's what it is in recovery. Like, people will support you always and lift you up instead of tearing you down. So when I was at the treatment center, and it's, well, where do you want to go when you leave the treatment center? And I had nowhere to go. Like, I wasn't going to go back under the bridge, and I'm not on good graces with my family, and I had nowhere else to go. So they're like, well, how about you go to sober living? And I didn't know what to expect from that either. I'm like, well, I don't have a job. Well, we'll give you time to get a job where you can pay your rent. And I don't have any food. And it's like, we'll help you get food. The guys will help you get food. These fears that I had, and these excuses that I was trying to make to not go there, they had an answer for everything. So eventually I go to that sober living house, Gateway, here in Cincinnati. And it was the best decision I could have made for myself at that time, because from the minute I woke up until the minute I went to bed here, there are so many like-minded individuals who are going through the same exact thing that I was, the daily turmoil, the daily struggle of trying to rebuild your life without the use of drugs. That they taught me how to pay bills on time. They taught me how to keep my word, how for me to be able to show up, and for me to donate items of clothing to the guy that just got there on his first day and didn't have anything and felt uncomfortable. I could invite him out to dinner with us, or to the meeting, or to play pool or cards, whatever. It just let me be a human, and let me learn how to be a man and be responsible while surrounded with other people going through the same thing. So if I have an issue, I can go to somebody and, how did you get through this? And, get their experience and how they stayed clean through different life experiences. So I'm working at I go, and my first job out of treatment is a restaurant where they used to let me do dishes one day a week for 2 hours for $15 and a free meal. So I go and I'm like, I'm clean now, and can I have a job? And they're like, yes, like, absolutely. And they were very happy for me, and they were very supportive of me. And that was another, they trusted me. Like, these people had cash registers, they had safes, they had all these things, and they trusted me there, that. And knowing my past, they knew me from the streets and still believed in me and gave me a chance. So these instances that are happening are like restoring my faith and restoring my hope for the future. All these good deeds and good people that had been placed in my life at the right time. So about 9 months into the restaurant job, the company that I had gotten the help from to get into rehab, the Downtown Ambassadors, they told me that I should apply for the job with them. And I definitely didn't think, with my criminal record and with my documented homelessness history, that they 100% knew about that I would ever get this job. But I did get the job. And again, this was probably the most perfect job that could have been for me, because every day now I am in charge of the streets that I was once homeless on. Like, I am given the opportunity to be downtown Cincinnati carrying a message verbally and non-verbally, that recovery is possible, and I am there to help anybody that is downtown Cincinnati struggling with addiction, trying to get off the streets, because somebody did it for me. And if I have the opportunity to do that for somebody else, I always will, and I try to always be paying it forward. And it's the same with the treatment center that I went to. You know, after the aftercare program and graduation, I was given the opportunity to become a peer recovery specialist. So now I get to come and go at the treatment center whenever I want. You know, I have a badge. I can go in there and hang out with the guys and just carry the message that there is hope, that I was in your exact seat not that long ago, and today I am successful, and all I've continued to do is one day at a time put one foot in front of the other and always do the next right thing, and this is possible for you too. So, you know, I paid off probation. I have a car. So putting the drugs down and getting out of my own way, my life has become amazing. You know, the freedom that I have in my life today, I wouldn't trade for any high. Like, I spent 3 years walking around a 5-mile circle downtown, trapped to the city because I couldn't leave, because I'm held hostage by a drug. And today there's a freedom in my life. You know, I can go on vacations, I can go places, I can be a son, I can be a brother again to my family, and I can just do what I want instead of being controlled by a drug. And that's very powerful for me. And I work a 12-step fellowship. You know, I'm a member of Narcotics Anonymous, and that again is huge. The support that I get from complete strangers, the free therapy sessions of a meeting, the going and hearing other people say their crazy thoughts and thinking like, I've thought the same thing, I'm not as crazy, and you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to get high today because I am here with you. You know, I've met the coolest people that you could ever imagine, you know, all walks of life, doctors, down to other homeless people, and it's the disease of addiction does not discriminate. And, you know, I've made better friends in the time that I've been clean than I ever did with the using people, because my recovery people support me and they build me up and they try to help me instead of trying to use me and manipulate me and take what they can from me, which is how my drug using friends were. And I don't know if you are struggling, like, there is hope. Like, we are here to help you. Like, I can't stress enough that just the fact that I had the support of other people was life-changing for me, because I couldn't believe in myself at that time. But when somebody else believed in me and gave me hope, that lit a spark in me that enables me to hopefully carry a message to somebody else who needs the same spark. So, you know, I have a sponsor. My sponsor has a sponsor. I do H&I meetings. You know, I do service commitments. I'm a peer mentor. Anytime I can do anything to help anybody that's struggling with addiction, I do. And, you know, I appreciate you guys for listening. I appreciate this opportunity to do this, to be asked to speak. I always love being asked to speak because I hope I can help somebody. We are here for you.